To make muga silk, laborers must unwind a muga caterpillar's cocoon into a single long seamless thread. And to make just one saree, about 1,000 cocoons need to be unraveled. A saree made of muga silk can cost up to $6,500, thousands more than other sarees. But the caterpillars needed to make the cocoons, also called muga seeds, might be in danger of disappearing. And without them, farmers can't produce muga silk at all. So why is muga silk so expensive? And what's hurting the caterpillars needed to make it? Muga can only be made in the Assam region of India. It's so central to the culture here that there's even a traditional song about the golden thread. Muga silk is unique because of its naturally lustrous gold color. It can last up to 100 years, and it's said to offer protection by absorbing 85% of harmful UV rays. But these properties also make it more expensive, and the labor and expenses required to make muga silk bump the price even further.
Farmers has to collect the seed cocoons with a very high price from different parts of the northeast Assam. This is because of the unavailability of muga seeds, number one. And number two, a huge number of manual labor has to be put in for conducting the rearing of muga.
Pokhila futuai khori kora sujjo udoy howa pora sujjo osto joaloike teoloke ei kiki karjot nimorjito thake.
They pick a male and female moth to mate and tie the female to the korika, a stick with a hook made of thatch grass or twine. This is where the female will lay its eggs. Rearers then transfer the korika to a sam tree, the host plant for muga worms. Here, tiny ash-colored larvae known as chai muga hatch and begin to feed on the leaves. But the larvae are vulnerable at this stage, so farmers need to keep a watchful eye to ensure they can form the cocoons needed to make muga silk. They shoot clay pellets into the fields to keep potential predators at bay and protect the larvae. After 1 or 2 months, they can collect the mature caterpillars.
And the mature caterpillars are collected by the farmers at night, and they put the mature caterpillars into some jalis for cocooning.
Here, the caterpillars rest and weave their cocoons for 3 days, until they fully empty the silk glands and enter pupation. Not all cocoons are used for silk. Some are stored in the sakori pera, a bamboo box for keeping cocoons and moths so farmers can continue breeding muga worms. The hatched cocoons are used for rougher fabrics, such as winter clothes and blankets. But the most expensive muga fabrics come from unhatched cocoons. That's because the silk in these cocoons isn't torn and can be unraveled into a continuous thread. Besides being limited in which cocoons they can use, weavers also need a lot of them. For weavers who buy cocoons, this doesn't come cheap.
তেতিয়াহ'লে আমাৰ শিপিনীসকলৰ সম্পূৰ্ণ লোকচান হোৱা নাই জানো 15 চনত যেটো আজি 21 চনতো এই এখন কাপোৰৰ দাম একেটাই হৈ আছে কিন্তু যেটো মুগাৰ আমি কঠিয়াটো কিনিছো কিন্তু সেই দামটো 50% বাঢ়িব
To produce 1 kilogram of muga yarn, Monica needs 5,000 cocoons, which is enough for about 5 sarees. And that 1 kilogram could take her a week, because to make the yarn, she needs to reel the golden thread, a process that demands special care. Traditionally, the Assamese add dried banana peel or paddy thatch ash to the mixture, which degums the cocoon and gives the thread a better sheen. And when it comes to muga, the shinier the silk, the more valuable it will be. Two people then use a pangoi to carefully reel the long muga silk threads in a continuous motion. Reelers gently pull from several cocoons and join the thin strings together to make one thicker thread. They must make sure each thread has a consistent thickness, or the yarn won't be as valuable. Finally, the reelers load the muga silk yarn onto bamboo looms, where Assamese women weave it into the desired fabric. Some of the most intricate saris made from regular silk can cost $250 in India, but the same design on a Muga silk fabric can kick the price up into the thousands. Muga silk is the pride of Assam, which accounts for almost all of India's Muga silk production, but the profits are limited.
নিমজ্জিত থাকে আৰু তাৰ পৰা তেওঁলোকে যিটো প্ৰডাক্ট কৰে তাৰো উচিত মূল্য পাবলৈ নাই ধৰক 1000 মুগাৰ দাম যদি 5000 হয় আমাৰ কৃষকৰ পৰা কিনে 3000 টকাত মধ্যভোগী আৰু 2000 টকা প্ৰফিট খায় এনেকৈ আমাৰ কৃষক মুগা ফাৰ্মাৰ বিলাক এনেকৈ জীৱিকা নিৰ্বাহ কৰি আছে
While Muga farmers work tirelessly to ensure the moths survive, it's not only up to them. The Muga moth is continuously threatened by the climate crisis. Muga silkworms are reared outdoors, and exposure to even the slightest change in temperature and humidity can wreak havoc. During high temperatures in 2018, farmers had to delay rearing for 10 to 15 days to avoid silkworm deaths. Losing this time during peak commercial season, when production is ramping up, means producers can end up with less Muga silk to sell.
This is one of the major threats to the Muga in the coming decades. And second is the pollution. And the pollution generated by the tea gardens and petrochemicals. Tea gardens use some very destructive chemicals like pesticides, herbicides, etc., etc.
These chemicals have toxic effects on the Muga moth that impact its mortality and ability to reproduce. This can threaten the relatively low production of Muga silk compared to other expensive Indian-made silks like mulberry silk. Only about 239 metric tons of Muga silk were produced in India in 2021. Compare that to over 24,000 metric tons of mulberry silk that were produced in the same year. According to Jatol, this doesn't meet global demand for Muga, and it drives the price even higher. The limited supply of authentic Muga silk has led some producers to fill the gap with fakes. To combat the rise of fake Muga, in 2007, the Indian government designated Assam Muga silk as a protected geographical indication, or GI product. This means authentic Muga silk can only come from Assam. But Jatol doesn't believe it's done much to help Assam's Muga silk production.
Because in my calculation, Muga silkworm is under the extinction depth. All the habitat area, the Muga silkworm, the houseplants sector, will be lost, totally lost in 2046.
That's why Jatol and other Muga farmers are relying on environmental conservation efforts, now and in the future, to ensure the survival of this millennia-old fabric.
Akore